conscience of herself shall not stand. Her husband has made them void, and the Lord will forgive her. Let me tell you what a husband needs to do at this point. When you hear these things, you need to bring it to her attention, but the same thing, you need to get on your knees and ask for forgiveness for it and say, Lord, do not hold her responsible for it. That's your responsibility. You have to go to the Father to annul those and cancel those false utterances, those things that are getting her into trouble. Curses and things like that. So anything that comes out, you're responsible. You hear it, you go to the Father, and you begin to cancel it out. That's how it's done. Does it make sense? Your husband is responsible for keeping you things that you say loosely. Right? Let's keep going. Any vow or any binding oath to afflict herself or husband may establish on her husband may be void. But if her husband says nothing to her from day to day, then he establishes all her vows and all her pledges that are upon her. He then establishes them because he has nothing to her. He has said nothing to her, and on that day that he heard them. But if he makes them null and void after he has heard of them, then he shall bear her iniquity. Okay? Uh-oh. Let me read that again. Uh-oh. But if he makes them null and void after he has heard of them, then he shall bear her iniquity. In other words, it's passed on to him. He takes on the responsibility 100%. Okay, this is key. All right. So then we come to Ephesians. We have something that's been taken out of context by a secular world who's not in covenant. All right? And many preachers who have used this to lord over people. But I believe that this word by Paul to the Ephesian church is tied directly to this. Okay? They're direct connections. Ephesians 5 verse 21 says, also submit yourselves to one another out of the reverence of Messiah. Wives to your own husbands as to the Lord, for a husband is the head of the wife, as Messiah also is the head of the community. Himself the Savior of the body, but as Messiah's community is submitted to Messiah, so also the wives to their husbands is everything. So Paul is writing this to the Ephesian church, and he's directly connecting this thing to Torah. Okay? There is an alignment that's set up. So what about a man? What about his loose vows? Right? How many times, wives, have you heard husbands say things that makes you cringe and you know it's messed up? Right? You don't have to raise your hand. But you know it's messed up. All right? Curses and things. We've all been guilty of it. All right? She's not your covering. Spiritually, the Father is. You're responsible for telling him so he can repent. Okay? Because only the Father can cover those and annul those vows. Only the Father for a man. Say it again. For us men, we have to go to the Father and ask for forgiveness because only he can annul those vows and those words and the things that we've said with your mouth. That's our responsibility. Your wife's just got to catch your tongue. Now, you may say she's bugging you and she's nagging at you, she's just giving you and she's irritating you, but the fact of the matter is she's actually protecting you. She's getting you out of hot water. It's hard. This is a hard lesson for a lot of guys because we don't want to hear it. The fact of the matter is if we don't hear it, we're going to have the same issues because those. I'm going to show you what happens when you don't you break a vow. It costs them. Okay. So our king established an order in the kingdom for our protection. This right here in Ephesians 5 is not for somebody to lord over somebody else. It's to get protection in the household. So the enemy can't get a foothold, right? Like I was telling you earlier, he gets a foothold, he'll do it through speech. This is protection, okay? If a man makes a vow that is careless in the same way, he has to go to the Father and seek mercy to annul that vow, okay? So let's look at Ezekiel 17. We'll give you an example of a vow or an oath that was made. Ezekiel's writing this about the southern kingdom, the house of Judah. It says in chapter 17, verse 11 of Ezekiel, that the word of Adonai came to me, saying, say now to this rebellious house. Who's the rebellious house? This is the southern kingdom. Okay? Do you not know that these things mean? Do you know what they mean? Tell them, behold, the king of Babylon came to Jerusalem, took the king and the princes, and brought them with him to Babylon. He took one of the royal offspring, cut a covenant with him, putting him under oath. Now, who was that person he cut oath? Does anybody know that person he cut an oath with? He took Zedekiah, which was the line of David, and he says, you're going to be king, and he put him on the throne. And now Zedekiah had a vow of covenant between Babylon, the Chaldean people, and the southern kingdom. He took one of the royal offsprings, cut a covenant with him, put him under oath. He also took away the leading men of the land. And why he's mentioning that? Because at that time, Ezekiel was one of the leading men of the men that was taken up. He was swept up on this thing, and he was taken to the Kebar River. So the kingdom might be lowly, not exalting itself, but keeping its covenant so it would hold up. Now, Zedekiah gets some new ideas in his head. Okay, have you watched on the national level, have you watched that our president's been trying to say, we've made agreements that are not good for us? How many have heard this lately? Okay? And he wants to go back and change those agreements, those vows and stuff like that. Because if you put yourself under agreement, if you're the one who did it, we as a nation. So if we've made an agreement with another nation, okay, we're responsible for that until they change the terms. Now he's smart enough to know you can't just cancel it. Because if you just cancel it, you're going to face, I'll give you an example. In 1969-70, my family just got to Peru, and there was a coup d'etat, and a military governor, a lieutenant colonel, took over the nation, and he went in there, and one of the first things he did, he took all the American and European companies, the Chilean companies, and he said, these are all belong to us. He broke his word, he broke the agreements, and he said, these are ours, you can't go, get out of here. And he kicked everybody out. 4 years later, he was dead. Okay? You can't break your vows. So the president knows, this president knows, you can't go against your word. You can go back and renegotiate the terms, but you can't break your word. Okay, now watch this. Verse 15, however, he rebelled against him and sending his messengers into Egypt, so he sought another alliance, so that they might give him horses and many people. Will he succeed? The question is being asked by the prophet. Will one doing such things escape? Will he escape for this? Will he break a covenant and escape? That's the question. If you've made a vow, you've made a covenant, and you break it, will you escape the judgment and will you escape the judgment of God? That's the question. This is what happens, verse 16. As I live, it is a declaration of Jehovah, surely in this place of the king who put him on the throne, whose oath he despised and whose covenant he broke, with Babylon he will die. What happened to Zedekiah? Exactly that. What happened to the nation of Judea? It was swept up and destroyed. What happened to the temple? It was destroyed. How many years were they outside of the land? 70 years. Now, there was a lot of people taken into exile, but if he kept his word, the Babylonians would have left him alone. Right? It's important. We say, well, that's a king. It's back then. It applies to a family. If a family makes an oath with another family and breaks it, the same thing applies here. All right, so read this here. I want you to read this. We live in a culture in which truth is often the first casualty of interactions between men. We have an incredibly elaborate system of lawyers and contracts and notaries and binding signatures to ensure that we do what we say we will do, at least when it's perceived to be important enough. So in other words, because the days of just a handshake going away, we've had to develop a system because people's word isn't good enough. We have to put notaries and affidavits and all that stuff into place so we make sure somebody's word. But guess what? Now it's a legal issue, and so if you break those affidavits and those notaries and those signature guarantees, you break them, what happens? There's huge consequences. But now it's a legal thing. But guess what? The Lord holds you accountable. Whether you put a notary on a piece of paper or you agree to it over handshake, it's the same.
Right.
It's exactly the same. There's no difference. And none of it makes people none of this made people any more truthful. They still lie, they still break their word. And I'll give you an example. Bo can tell you, he was telling me that the policeman came in and they'd taken statements, right? It's pretty funny. Bo says, he says to Bo first, well, the other four have said that you're at fault and you did this and you did this and you did this, right? But guess what? When they made a statement, and they're getting ready to make a statement to their insurance companies, right? Once that gets recorded, it's a legal binding statement. Bo says, that's not what happened. I know this is not what happened. This is what happened. Right? So he'll put himself on record. But guess what? The Father knows. The Father knows. And in a case where you don't know, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what happened. Sometimes you got to put your name on it. You put your word. That's a legal binding situation. You don't mind me sharing about it, do you? Okay. So what does our Messiah say concerning these oaths? What did he say about it? Well, in chapter 5, verse 33, again you have heard that it was said to those of old, referring back in Torah, right? You shall not swear falsely, but shall carry out your oaths to Jehovah. But I tell you, do not swear it at all. Just don't do it. Not by heaven or by the throne of God. So what they did in that day, in the first century, they would not say, just like today, the Jewish community will not say the sacred name, right? So they'll find ways around it. They'll say, I swear by the kingdom. I'll swear by Jerusalem. I swear by the throne in heaven. But they wouldn't mention his name. And he's saying, it doesn't matter how you say it, your intent is still there. You're still swearing by your Creator. So no matter what you do, you still get held accountable for that because you're making an oath. Okay? Not by heaven, for it is the throne of God. Verse 35. Or by the earth, for it is his footstool of his feet. Or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make a single hair white or black. Now, why did you put that in there? Because, yes, I can't tell how many gray hairs I have or not, but don't swear because you have no authority. You have no authority. You can't swear by yourself. It's important. But let your word, yes, be yes, and your no be no. Anything more than that, this is from an evil one. So in other words, if somebody says to you, and people do this, swear to God you didn't do that. Don't let them do that to you. Shut it down. Because that's a test. It's a trap. You say my word, my yeses are my yeses, or my no's are my no's. If I say I didn't do it, that's why, and I hold it because the Father's accountable for everything that proceeds from my mouth. If I say I did it, am I guilty? I'll hold that too. All right? Do not swear by something. Make your words accountable. What you say is what you're accountable for. No pinky swears. No 1,000 emails in your eye or any of that other mess, right? So, how do we guard our speech? Because this is a tough one, right? It's the toughest thing we can do because going over to your house, Richard, I had a lady almost back up and run into me. And she was jawing at me, blaming me, and I'm a pedestrian, right? And everything in me, Carmen knows, everything in me was want to say something back. What good it was going to do? But my head was swirling. I was mad, right? Because the lady almost ran me over. But what good does it all do? As you can see, a Torah places a system of protection to keep us from breaking words. Okay? The quickest way for the accuser, I'm going to read this twice, so I want you to hear this and I want you to write this down. The quickest way for the accuser, Hasatan, to get a foothold in your family, right, is for something that you say. Okay? I told you an account on this pastor was telling a story that his son was in ministry and he got a divorce and he gets out and he comes back and he begins living with the father. And months were going by and he wasn't getting back on his feet. He was depressed, he was stuck. And the father, who's also a pastor, and the mother was just, at first it started, they were worried and concerned. They would pray for him. But then after months go by, you start going, this kid, what's he going to do? And they start speaking against the kid. But then they kept praying every day the same prayer, Father, get this depression from this kid. And finally the Lord says, you got to ask for forgiveness because you've been thinking thoughts and saying things about your son. How in the world can you bring this prayer before me when you have said what you did? I hold you accountable for those words. He had to repent of those words, and right after he repented and he interceded for his son, guess what? Depression lifted from his son and was gone. Immediately. Because the father held sway over his son. Okay? Trust me, the supernatural in Scripture, this all lines up. There's no breaking it. You've got to go back and look at conversations and things in your family and reasons why things are not functioning well, and go back to the Father and say, reveal things that I said and thought that are affecting this relationship and keeping us from progressing. All right. Ecclesiastes 9:17, he's guarding your speech through silence. It says, the quiet words of the wise are more to be heeded than the shouts of rulers of fools. Proverbs 17:28, even fools are thought wise when they keep silent when their mouth shut. So a foolish person who doesn't say anything, even when he wants to, is considered wise. Proverbs 10:19, transgression is at work where people talk too much. But anyone who holds his tongue is prudent. All right, that's pretty strong words. All right. I don't think you take these scripture verses and you put them in a ball and you throw them at somebody who talks too much. But because you don't want to do that. But at the same time, you need to bring that to your attention that there's times when you've got to hold your tongue. Because you may say something in anger that you're going to be held accountable for. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think this escapes anybody in this room or anybody outside. I think there's not a human being that doesn't have to repent of the things that they've said. I don't think they exist anymore. So I believe that. And guarding your speech from speaking evil. The word in Hebrew is called Lashon Hara. Anybody heard about that? New Testament calls it gossip. Same thing. Lashon Hara, gossip, one and the same. Proverbs 21:23. Whoever guards his mouth and his tongue keeps himself out of trouble. That's true, right? Ephesians 6:29. This is a big one. No foul language is to come from your mouth. Period. There's no commas, there's no buts after that one. No foul language is to come from your mouth, but only what is good for building up someone in need so that it gives grace to those who hear. All right? You build somebody up. You spend time with them. You lift them up. Psalms 141:3. O Lord, set a guard at my mouth. Keep watch over the doors of my lips. This should be your daily prayer. Daily prayer. If the Lord, you know what? This is only like 10% of all the scripture verses today that are talking about this. There are so many. It's consuming the scripture. If we just did basically searches on the tongue, you'd be overwhelmed how important this is in the kingdom. Because I want to show you how Satan can get a grab on it. Okay? When should we speak up? Now I'm going to show you something that's going to make some of you real sick. Okay? But when should we speak up? When should we say the right things? Proverbs 31:9. Speak up, judge righteously, and defend the rights of the afflicted and oppressed. Isaiah 1:17. Learn to do what is good, seek justice, correct the oppressor, defend the rights of the fatherless, the orphan, and plead the widow's cause. All right? Now I'm going to show you a case where afterwards, the mother said, I can't believe my son, my children, I can't believe they did this. This is not the way I raised them. Okay? But I'm going to tell you, if you go back to Torah, you're going to see in this family, and I can't give you the whole article.